What can you do to help in a tragedy? I want to share with you just some ideas that I have when tragedy strikes for someone else and how it can help, um, you can help them. My name is Danielle, and this is Living Light and Truth. This is where I share experiences and tips and things that I have learned in my life about living in light and truth. There are things that have happened in the world in the last year, even in recent months, that have been tragedies for some people. And I know that when you look at yourself and you think back on your life, or even the last couple months, I am sure that you know of people that have had tragedies, that have really been hit with something that's very unexpected, something that they didn't anticipate, that is hard. What you can do to help in tragedy is you can be there for them. Now, I want to specifically talk about loss. When somebody loses a family member or a close friend, we have the tendency to want to rush in. We want to say to them, I am so sorry. What can I do to help? That is so normal and natural, but it doesn't always help. So, what I want to tell you, as someone who lost her mother within the last year and a half, no words are going to help. But what does help is sitting with the person. What does help is finding a way to serve, to show up and say, I love you, to show up with flowers, show up with food, show up with just you to sit there. And one of the things that I was offered when my mom passed away was a friend of mine came and she said, I have availability next week. And she said, tell me when I can come and clean your house. And I was so grateful for that. I didn't take her up on her offer because I have children and they help clean the house, so she didn't need to. But the thing that I was dealing with too at that time is 3 days before my mom died, I had surgery. And so it was a very painful surgery. And I was dealing with not being able to do a whole lot, plus my mom died. So people showed up, people brought us food, but you know what helped the most is when somebody came and they just sat there with me in my grief. They sat there and they didn't try to make it better, but they were there. They didn't have to say anything. And I think one of the greatest gifts that you can do for someone is just sit there with them in their grief. Another thing that you can do for someone that has had a tragedy is be available to them when they need help. When, I guess my daughter is 18 now, and when she was 4, her best friend in the neighborhood, her mom accidentally ran over her little sister. And it was pure accident, and it was tragic. It was hard. And I just wanted to go and make it better. It was so hard to not just take it away, because I couldn't take it away. And of course, I remember the night that it happened, and I remember it was the first time I had ever experienced really praying throughout the night. I would fall asleep and I would wake up praying for this family, because we didn't know if she would pass away or if she wouldn't. She ultimately did. And what I did everything that I could everything that I could think of that wouldn't be intrusive to help them. They had plenty of casseroles in the freezer, and I'm not the best cook, so I didn't do that. But what I did do is I was available when she needed someone to watch her daughter so she could go to counseling. I wasn't close enough to her, I don't think, to sit with her in her grief. I don't know that she would have let me, but I could pray, and I did, and I prayed a lot, and I could be there whenever she asked for help. I want to shift gears just a little bit. We've talked about what can you do to help when there's a tragedy. I want to just mention what not to do when there's a tragedy. Have had the fires in LA recently, where people have had their homes completely burned. They've just burnt to the ground. They didn't know that this was going to happen. And, it happened, and it was sudden, and their homes are gone. When this was happening at first, the first week that it started, I was watching all the news stuff that I watch on a normal basis. One of the biggest things was everybody was pointing fingers. And now I agree there needs to be accountability. But in order to really, truly help someone during a tragedy, we don't want to blame. We don't want to put blame on people. We don't want to point fingers. We don't want to make it worse by saying, let's go after these people. Let's fight it. Let's do all of these things. That doesn't help a person when they are dealing with tragedy. It distracts them from the grief that they need to feel and they need to process through. So it's really important that we do not help them to get distracted by placing blame on others. We can feel empathetic. We can feel compassionate and show our compassion by helping them, by, in this situation, even having a home for them to go to, or providing food or clothing for them. We can provide those things, but it doesn't help anyone to point fingers or judge in the midst of that tragedy. Now, there is a time and a place where people need to be held accountable, and that will come, and that does come. But in that freshness of loss and grief and tragedy, it is not the time to point fingers. It is not the time to say, you were in the wrong, or you shouldn't have been doing this, or you shouldn't have been doing that. It is a time for us to be like Jesus and to just love one another. I think about what would Jesus do at that time. He would come and he would put his arms around these people, and he would hug them and hold them and allow them to grieve. And then he would take them by the hand and he would take them to shelter, and he would provide food and he would provide clothing. And then maybe, a month down the road, he would provide what is necessary to find out who was the problem, but not in that freshness of the tragedy. So I want to make sure that we don't judge, we don't blame, we don't take that negative stance when there is a tragic loss of some sort, because it doesn't help anybody in those first few days or weeks after a tragedy. So the message I want to give to you is that we need to love others, and we need to help by sitting with them in their grief and grieving and mourning with them. Whatever that loss is, to help them feel that we are there with them. We're not trying to tell them what to do next. We're not trying to tell them how we can relate. We are just with them and loving them. We need to be there in their loss. So for you can help someone in their tragedy by being there for them And if it's necessary, fine. Meet their physical needs. But if it's not necessary, just sit with them and help them and ask them what you can do to help. They're not always going to give you something. When I lost my mother, I had no idea. I don't know. I don't even know what to do. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to feel. That was where I was at. And so if somebody asked, which they did, what can I do to help you? I answered honestly and I said, I don't know. And so at that point in time, people needed to step up and say, okay, I'm just going to sit with you. Can I just watch a movie with you? That would have helped. Can I bring a board game over for you and maybe play it with you? I don't know if that would have helped. Maybe, maybe not. But if I would have been asked that, I could have in that moment known what to say. So we all endure tragedies at one time or another in our lives. And to have somebody sit with us and to feel their love and support is something that soothes and helps us to have the strength to move to the next day and the next day and the next day until we can move through our grief. Thank you for joining me. If you want to hear something that is similar to this message, go to this video. It is about trusting God in uncertain times, and I share some tips on how to do that. We all go through uncertain times, and sometimes we just need a little help. I am excited for you to come back. I will see you next time.